Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our panel discussion on engaging girls in sport. I'm Teva Smith, Director of Communications at the Alliance of Girls' Schools, and I am delighted to welcome you all. We have a fantastic panel of experienced educators and sportswomen lined up for you today to delve into the challenges and opportunities for girls' schools in engaging girls and keeping them engaged in sport. The panel will be hosted by esteemed sportswoman and girls' school educator Pauline Harvey Short, OAM. Pauline has had 42 years of health and physical education teaching experience in both state and independent sectors. She is the author of To Become Fine Sportswomen, The History of Health, Physical Education and Sport at Brisbane Girls Grammar School from 1875 to 2010. As chair of ACHPA Women in Sport Special Interest Group and president of Women's Sport Queensland, she worked to advocate for and promote women in sport, both at the elite level and at grassroots. Pauline represented Australia in softball and is currently the manager of school history and culture at Brisbane Girls Grammar School. Before I hand over to Pauline, I also wanted to acknowledge our event partner, Clipboard Extracurricular Management System, and thank them for their support, which has allowed us to bring you today's event. If you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we will put those to the panel at the end of the session. And now I'll hand over to Pauline.
Thank you, Teva. And welcome to my panel. Hopefully this is starting to happen and we are all back on deck.
And shortly we will be able to see Pauline as well. Pauline, could you just check your camera settings there for a moment, please?
Certainly.
There you go.
Thank you, Teva, very much, and welcome to the panel. As a way of introduction, we as Australians are falling short of the World Health Organization recommended 60 minutes of physical activity per day. Girls' schools are trying to remedy this situation. The dominant long-term motivators for women to be involved in physical activity include physical health and fitness, fun and enjoyment, mental health benefits, and social involvement. As educators of young women, we know that sport provides a marvellous avenue to mental and physical health, joy, connectedness, and self-worth. It can also develop resilience, a sense of achievement, and on the other hand, lead to disappointment and frustration. It's a complicated mechanism. Why then is it so difficult to keep girls involved in sport as they progress through their secondary schooling? Or is it? Today, we will hopefully explore the opportunities and challenges posed to teachers and students through sport. The questions we pose are, how can schools keep girls engaged in sport throughout their schooling and into their lives? What are the long-term benefits of consistent sports participation for girls? What tools can schools use to improve the sports experience for students, parents, and staff? I'm very pleased to welcome my panel. Kirby Short, Deputy Principal, McGregor State High School in Brisbane, sports commentator and former professional cricketer. Michelle Barry, Active Schools Support Service ACHPA, Victoria, and a member of the School Sport Victoria Advisory Committee. And Rob Cooper, Director of Sport at Lauriston Girls School. And I also would like to welcome Carolyn Gagan from Clipboard Extracurricular Management System, today's event sponsor. We might start with our panelists introducing themselves, and I shall start with Kirby. Welcome, Kirby. And for the purpose of full disclosure, I'm very proud to say that Kirby is my gorgeous daughter. And Kirby, would you like to share a little bit about yourself, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Lovely to be on the panel with this group of people. Lovely eclectic perspective. Yeah, I guess what you can't hear from the introduction from me is that physical activity and sport has always been a very valued part of my world. And with that as one theme and perhaps leadership as another, pursued elite sporting representative sporting pathway right from when I was at school and then beyond to about a 16-year career in cricket with Queensland and the Brisbane Heat as well. And in conjunction with that, my double job life, such as the nature of women's sport at that point, was that I also pursued leadership opportunities in education. I now am in the role of deputy principal at a coeducational high school in Brisbane, and also my roots sit with the phys ed faculty in schools. So pleasure to be here and hopefully can bring some education and also a sporting lens. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kirby. Michelle, welcome. And could you share a little bit of your history, please?
Yes, thank you, Pauline. I guess start back when I was teaching. So I was a secondary teacher, a PE science teacher at Warrandyte High School, which is a suburb in the northeast of metropolitan Melbourne. From there, after teaching there for a number of years, I left and went to Tennis Victoria, where I was the inaugural school development coordinator and was responsible for growing the Tennis in Schools program and upskilling many thousands of teachers around Victoria to deliver tennis. And then last year, a great opportunity came up with ACHPA Victoria and the Active Schools program. It's a government initiative where we're working with schools to look at how they can increase the physical activity levels of students. And then School Sport Victoria, I sit on their advisory committee. And when I was teaching, I also ran a division as part of School Sport Victoria. So yeah, love sport, love getting girls and boys involved in sport, and really looking forward to the next hour. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michelle. And Rob, would you share a little of your professional life with us, please?
Thanks, Pauline. Also delighted to be here this afternoon. I'm based in Victoria and have been involved in girls' sport and girls' schools for the last 10 to 12 years. Prior to that, worked at a private boys' school and prior to that at a co-educational school. And I've been involved in, I guess, directing sport or head of sport roles for over 10 years. I've worked the last 10 years, 5 years at the moment at Lauriston Girls' School, and prior to that at Melbourne Girls' School, two terrific educational schools, private girls' schools in Melbourne, and have had an absolute delight and a great opportunity to work with some fabulous students and also educators. So that's given me great delight to turn up to work every day and keep helping our youths be active, I guess, which is really important.
Lovely. I think judging from that panel, it's going to be a very interesting hour. And thank you so much, all three, for joining us. Before we progress, I would like to invite Rob and Carolyn to talk a little bit about today's event sponsor, Clipboard Extracurricular Management System, and the positive impact this purpose-built system has had on Lauriston's sports program. So over to Carolyn and Rob.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pauline. And thank you all to everyone who's joining us today. Clipboard, we're really excited to be hosting this event with the Alliance, and it sounds like it's quite a topical webinar. We've had quite a big response so far, so great to have you all with us. As Pauline said, I'm Caroline. I'm part of the Clipboard sales and marketing team. I also attended an AGSA member school, and I was actively involved in sport, particularly rowing throughout my time at school and again when I went on to university. After that, I coached rowing at Loreto Ballarat and also Newington up here in Sydney. So today, first, I want to share a little bit about Clipboard, and then I'm going to invite Rob to join me, and we're just going to discuss a little bit about how Clipboard has helped Lauriston. They've been a Clipboard school for almost 3 years now. I should say too, there's quite a few Clipboard schools on this call, so it's great to have you all here. And we work with about 100 schools across Australia, and 30 of those are Alliance member schools. So for those who aren't familiar with Clipboard, we're an extracurricular management system, and the aim of Clipboard is to help schools deliver great extracurricular experiences by providing a single platform for all activities outside of the classroom. Clipboard was created by two co-founders, so Sam Clark and Ed Collier. They were basketball coaches at their old high school, Knox Grammar School, and they were really fed up with using manual paper-based systems. Certainly across the whole sporting program, coaches were using paper, Excel, emails to manage their teams, mark attendance, and also to communicate with parents. But the issue was that everyone had different processes and information was sitting across different silos. Both Sam and Ed observed these challenges at Knox, but they also noticed that the schools they were playing against had similar challenges as well. And so over the years, they spoke with their directors of sport and directors of co-curricular, and they found that they also, from a leadership perspective, had a similar challenge. And that was that they didn't have oversight across the whole extracurricular program because all the information wasn't sitting in a central place. And because of this, there were further challenges that resulted. So first, it was creating child safety and duty of care risks. So schools weren't able to see a live record of where students were at all times and who they were with. Secondly, there was a lot of hours wasted by staff as they moved between manual systems and paper and electronic systems. And thirdly, there was communication between students and parents that was inconsistent, and this was leading to a poor experience. So Clipboard was really created to solve these challenges. And now, as an extracurricular management system, Clipboard manages the full end-to-end administration for sport and also the performing arts. So from sign up to team management to communications. We support schools with things like activity selection. We allow parents to browse, to sign up and to pay for their child's activities. We support staff with scheduling, marking roles, reporting incidences, and we improve that communication between staff, parents, and students. So Rob, this might be a good time to bring you into the conversation. Before you brought Clipboard into Lauriston, were these challenges things that you're familiar with? And maybe just give us a bit of a sense of how you were managing the program at Lauriston.
Absolutely. I think what I'm about to say will probably resonate with a lot of directors of sports or heads of sport. We, as you mentioned before, used a manual clipboard, lots of sheets of paper included in the clipboard, whether it be rules or score sheets or lists of students, medical forms, and a whole range of other items within the clipboard, which you'd have to, I guess, ferry through to try and find the information you needed at a particular time. The other added aspect, I guess, of using that physical clipboard that we struggled with was weather. And that was one of the greatest challenges. We'd walk out with the clipboard to a soccer ground and it would rain, and we're a score sheet or whatever we've got in our hand and it would get wet, and then we know what happens with paper when it gets wet. So it wasn't a great experience from that point of view. So we spent a lot of time, I guess, investigating different opportunities, and Clipboard came along. We've been absolutely delighted with how Clipboard has fitted into our school. We use it just as a sports management program at the moment, but are looking to expand that into drama or debating and of course music as well as we move forward. I think, you know, when we look at the overall picture and the experience of Clipboard, it's such an easy, accessible item that allows us to, I guess, have everything in our palm, whether that be on the computer or as an app. But it's not just accessible to us. We give it to our receptionist, as you mentioned before. You know, with the new child safety laws, and our receptionist has information that parents will ring up and ask where their daughter might be, and she's able to give it to them straight away, which is really important. In saying that, the parent should have access to it on their parent calendar, but we know that at times parents would prefer to go to a source to get it rather than search through their computers or their phones for information.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Rob. And last year, you and I were talking a lot about the increase in participation you've had at Lauriston over the 5 years that you've been Director of Sport. And as you rightly said, you were talking about that attendance piece being quite a challenge. Can you just talk a little bit further, I suppose, about how Clipboard's really helped you to know where students are at all times? You mentioned obviously the admin having access, but what does that actually look like? How do you keep track of your students across the program?
Yeah, definitely. So we've had a huge increase in participation in the 5 years I've been here, not because I've arrived at Lauriston or anything exciting like that, but more the fact that the school invested a lot of time and effort into a sports strategic plan. And one of the what it attributed to was the fact that our year 7s, 8s and year 10s were required to do a sport or physical activity. We're a school where our year 9s are off campus and they have a year away, but it meant that those 3 year levels were required to do something every single week of the year. So we had to think about how are we going to log this information, how are we going to maintain, check in and make sure girls are actually doing doing something. So it's meant that we've been able to have everything in a centralized place. We have a range of sporting staff at our school that have access to this, whether it be sport administrators or heads of sports such as rowing or swimming or athletics, and they can all see what girls are up to. It's really important to us that we track what girls are doing, but also manage their commitments. think we'll probably talk about this a bit later on, and how we go about managing girls' commitments, and whether it's internal or external sporting commitments, and that's really vital. And I think the great aspect of this is the attendance, as you mentioned, Caroline, that we're able to mark attendance, and girls may have a commitment the night before and not be able to attend a morning sports training, but that they notify us, we can add it in early. Coaches can see the information straight away, select teams easily based on girls that are available, and then pass that information and select the team straight through to me if I need to get the information out to parents, or to the students themselves. So from that point of view, it's been outstanding. Again, the aspect for coaches is absolutely vital. They have access to the resources that are on this program. For us, it's score sheets, playing rules, medical information, awards information, which I know a lot of schools for sports can be a challenge. And it gives them straight away access. They can sit on the side of it. I keep using soccer as an example. They're standing on the side of a soccer ground and are able to pull up their phone, for example, and get all the information they need to, contact information of students and parents, and just vital information that we all need when we're out on an excursion or an external venue.
Great, thanks, Rob. And you mentioned obviously communication to parents and sort of last minute changes. Perhaps you could just share with us how you're able to get that information to parents so quickly through Clipboard. Definitely.
So Clipboard, we use Synergetic as one of our programs with Clipboard, and Synergetic work really well together. We obtain information, and one of the great challenges is making sure that we've got a full team, sporting teams going out to venues. We play our sport after school during the week, so not a huge amount on the weekend. We do have some sports to play on the weekend, but parents will ring into the main office and say their daughter's unwell, and that information gets logged and automatically gets transferred from Synergetic through to Clipboard, so we know automatically whether girls are available or not. On the same page, we're able to then put up information such as fixtures, bus information, or other details that coaches may want students and parents to know. Please don't forget your mouth guard, or make sure you bring a towel that's looking wet, and we don't want you dirty on a bus, whatever it might be. We're able to get that information straight back to the parents through their school portal. So we have a specific co-curricular calendar that parents and girls have access to. So a parent can log in, check their daughter's weekly schedule for sport, click on a little link, say a soccer match, pull up a little blurb, and it comes up with a map of where they're playing, what time the bus departs, what time they can expect their daughter back at school to pick them up again, and any other information, as I said, that we want to give them. So that two-way experience is really, really important.
And that's with Schoolbox, is that right, Rob?
Correct, yeah. Yes, yeah, correctly right. So through Schoolbox as well, and that link is really important.
Excellent, wonderful. And just, I suppose, overall, if you could sum up how things have changed for you since implementing Clipboard, what will you say?
And look, I think, it's not just me, it's the whole sport department, and hopefully the whole school. The experience has had a really big difference and a big change on everyone's access to this program. The time that we've been able to save, I guess, in inputting data, we've made sure that it hasn't just been one or two people having access to the back end of Clipboard, so they can enter fixtures and data and attendance, so that we've got a number of people able to do it. That's also helped to reduce some time and allowed me to then go and work on other sports that we can engage our girls with, and that's vital. We have the normal standardized sports, let's call them, which girls have access to, but we want to expand that experience for the girls. So by having more people helping, putting in fixtures or bus information or whatever else it may be, all on a platform, is absolutely fantastic, and has saved us an enormous amount of time and effort, and a lot less double handling of information.
Yeah, great, wonderful. Thank you, Rob, and really excited to hear some more about how you've improved the program at Lauriston and kept girls engaged in sport. To everyone on the call, we hope you enjoyed the webinar, and Pauline, I'll hand it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn, very much. Wow, as speaking as a dinosaur, I think I had that information in about 4 offices and 16 filing cabinets. So it's quite the thing. So thank you for sharing that, Rob. There's a lot of information there to digest. So we might get down to business. I think that we can say that we're great believers in the efficacy of sport for girls. So Michelle, I'll start with you. Nice, easy question. What do you see as the biggest issues facing girls' sports in schools at the moment?
Yeah, great question, Pauline. I think, there's a few things that we could talk about with this, but I think one of the big ones is we're offering what girls actually want. So, and are we catering for all girls as well? School sport, I find, is very traditional. It's always been done that way. So sometimes change can be really difficult. But we know, Pauline, you alluded before that, you know, a quarter of our students aren't meeting the recommended daily 60 minutes of exercise. And in fact, the Australian Physical Activity Report came out this year and we got a D-. So what we're doing is not actually working. So how do we change it up and how do we cater for those students? So, you know, we all love sport. We've probably all gone on post our high school years and playing sport. But there's many girls that aren't actually doing that. And we think about your cohort of students. We've got our really sporty girls that will make your A netball team or your B basketball team. But what happens to those students that aren't really sporty and don't enjoy that competition? How are we catering for them? And research is showing us at the moment, a lot of girls are starting to access what we can call leisure activities. So, you know, they're happy to go for a walk or a run, go for a bike ride, go for a surf, go and do Pilates or yoga or join the gym. So can we cater for those students within our school sport? And it's really tricky because we then need to define, well, what is school sport and what is the purpose of school sport? Is it so the school wins the flags and, you know, can brag about how great they are? Or is it about giving girls the opportunity to be physically literate and to love movement? And I think sometimes we forget that we were teaching our girls that to love movement and to be physically active for life. So, you know, a really easy one we can think about is the cross country. Every school does it, and I'm pretty sure every school has it mandated. And fantastic, everyone can walk or run 3 kilometres, but some girls absolutely dread it. They think it's the worst event of the year. So how can we make it fun? We're seeing lots of schools at the moment doing colour runs. So, you know, they put the music on, they bring out the coloured powder and they squirt the girls on it. You know, some of them get their local fireys along and have the fire trucks out and watering the girls down. So an event that might cause anxiety for students is now becoming a fun event. So just some little changes like that can make a huge impact for those girls that don't want to participate in competitive sport. And then probably just the other thing, there's been a great study done by Vic Uni that has come out in the last 12 months about uniform. So a really simple one as well is your uniform catering for all the girls involved as well? So the research showed that the students want options. They don't want to have to be, you know, in the tight bodysuits or the little skirts. They prefer to wear shorts. They prefer to wear tops that usually cover their shoulders, and they like the dark coloured tops as well. And also, is there a safe place for these girls to change? If body image is a real issue, well, where can they go and feel safe and change? Or, you know, can you change the rules around school uniform and the policies so that they can actually wear their sports uniform to school that day that they've got physical activity or sport on? So they're just a couple of little ones, Pauline, to start us off with.
They're excellent ones to start us off with, Michelle. Thank you very much. Rob, what do you feel about those issues? Would you be in agreement with those issues?
Absolutely. I think Michelle's spot on when she talks about the importance of offering sports and activities that girls actually want to take part in. I think every school will turn around and say, look, we've got our soccer, our netball, our hockey, maybe some water polo, and AFL clearly now is such a prime sport in our industry. But the big key to it is what are we offering these girls that aren't perhaps your mainstream sport girls? You know, we looked at the Olympics a couple of years ago, and we looked at sports such as speed climbing, skateboarding, these sports that are a little bit outside the box, but how can we continue to engage girls through this avenue? You know, I've spoken to a number of girls at our school about skateboarding, and these are the girls that perhaps don't want to be playing netball and soccer and things like this. And so they're saying, okay, well, we'd love to go out and do, you know, once a week, go down to a skate park in a safe, hopefully safe environment and be active down there with a group of friends within the school. And I guess the other aspect that we'd be really mindful of, as we've been mentioning here, is making it as fun as we possibly can. We were talking a little earlier about the importance of being competitive but having fun. And I think, you know, we probably all saw the Australian runner the other night winning fantastic, I believe, 1500 meter race. And he interviewed afterwards and he said, I just enjoyed it. I just have fun. And I know it's competitive and I know we're all here to win and we want to win. And that's really important to us. But long and the short of it is I come out and I have fun. And I think we need to be embracing that with our girls as much as we possibly can. So yeah, that's vital.
Hey, I think the definition of fun varies, doesn't it? What is fun for one person may not be fun for another person.
Absolutely.
Kirby, does any of that resonate with you from your school experience?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually, when Michelle was talking about uniform, nothing really is necessarily new, isn't it? I was taken back to year 7, actually, when there were some really limited choices for sport. I wasn't a netballer, but that's all I could play in the winter season. So that's what I played. And the short skirt situation, I chose to wear shorts because it allowed me to run around at lunchtime and not compromise any integrity. And dutifully, grade 1, you buy all the uniform, and then I did not touch that pleated skirt again until year 7 when I had to play netball. So it was not quite done up as far as it needed to be, clearly, but it was done up enough so that it resonates, the idea of being comfortable. I think when I reflect on a school sporting experience, for me, there's lots of different factors that attract you to things, and I love the themes of, you know, being part of something and choosing something that you really love and feeling comfortable doing what you're doing. My school colour run, that also resonates, Michelle. That's something that we adopted to a couple of years ago. But that idea for me of school sport was where I found my people. It's where I found a sense of belonging. And I am one of the people where competition and fun sit side by side. But I understand that sometimes being competitive and chasing representative sport or elite pathways is absolutely not for everyone. Irrespective of that, I think one of the unique parts of what sport offers in school, or physical activity more generally offers in school, is a chance to find people with common interests. And we know that a fundamental need of every human is to belong. So I think, to both of the points already made, I absolutely think for me that sport above all else actually allowed me to find a group of people that I had so much in common with, and then that helped me feel settled, particularly in a high school setting.
Yeah. Yes, I think that finding the group that works for you is about that connectedness that we say physical activity and sport can give us, and Rob alluded to as well, which I think is really important. Kirby, did you feel that during your time in school that there was a drop-off in participation? Obviously not for you, but of your friends?
Yeah, it's interesting. I sort of almost had a physical activity and sport group and a non-sporting group of friends, I think. And that probably more spoke to, I guess, different people's priorities. I remember being in a year 10 PE class doing volleyball, and that was one of the sports that I played a lot and dearly loved. And I sort of remember having to rein myself in I was with my non-sporting group of friends in that particular instance. And one of the girls actually broke her finger in that class, and she was probably one of the most highly intellectually capable girls in our year, and sport was her worst nightmare. And I remember being in that class and being reminded that not everyone loves it like you love it. So I think maybe that's where the part of the teacher Kirby might have been born, going, how do you make these people feel included when, you know, they might not appreciate this physical activity? So I certainly had an experience where at the same time I walked alongside people who thought that sport was the worst thing in the world. So I made it my personal mission to help them feel as comfortable as possible in those sorts of settings. And likewise then got my fix with like-minded people through those sort of more formal, structured sporting pathways.
Yeah, that absolutely. I think that hopefully all educators are thinking the same thing, or nodding very hard around about trying to be inclusive and making sure that everybody feels comfortable in their space, whichever space that may be. Rob, do you see a drop-off in girls' participation across secondary schooling? And if so, where, and if so, why?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Look, we tend to see it in the senior years, which is our year 11s and 12s. And I think it comes from a whole range of things. I think the expectations and their academic studies are greter and higher. They're at the business end of schooling, and they sort of have a bit of a greater focus on their final results. I also think, you know, there's other things that come into their lives which makes things a bit more challenging to sport in at times. And they're the challenges that we as directors of sports or heads of sport face and need to find solutions to. Michelle spoke before and said that COVID has played a really big part on the way we or students choose and select sports. We've certainly found that, and this is sort of coming back a little bit more now, but we found that our team sports weren't taken up as popular, or weren't as popular as our recreational activities. We offer things such as yoga and swimming and a run club and boxercise and table tennis and a range of rec activities where girls have really jumped at and said, I want to do that. I'm really enjoying it. And I think the really slow return to team sport was a little bit based around the fact that there was a lot of stopping and starting when COVID came in and out a fair bit, and they didn't want to commit themselves fully, then only to find out, like, I'm finished now and I don't get to play my soccer matches for the season. So we've got to work really, really hard in finding sports and activities that the students in the senior years want to keep playing. Lifelong sports are obviously the ones we talk about so regularly, our tennis, our golf, and these are sports that you can play for the rest of your life. But at the same time, we need to think about, well, what can we offer these girls and when can we offer these girls activities? I think time and a variety, engaging teachers or engaging sports coaches, we can never look past the importance that staff make on students' lives. Having a head of a particular sport or a coach that's engaging and girls want to be there to see and learn from is essential. And if I go back to the time element, we've put a big focus on running some particular sports. We'll use swimming and running as an example, where we'll run activities a number of times a week. So girls have opportunities to come and go when it suits their schedule, whether they might have SACs or tests or whatever it might be. They have an opportunity to pick up a sport when they like. We've got a brand new sporting building being built and open in the next few weeks, which is fun, which is exciting. But we're also going to give girls an opportunity to come into the strength and conditioning room and during their spare periods. And rather than saying to them, hey, they may decide to do their physical exercise after school, we're going to give them an opportunity to do it during the school day and allow them to tick off their boxercise class or their strength and conditioning session during the school day. And then when they go home, they've got a bit of, maybe perhaps a little bit of downtime before they get back to their study or those sort of things. So I think we need to think outside the box of what we're offering, when we offer it, and how we offer it to the students.
Yeah, that's very good. I think Michelle mentioned previously about physical literacy, and that's what you're alluding to. You're trying to give them skills that can carry them not just simply through their secondary life or keep them engaged in their secondary school active life, but also to give them the literacy that when they become adults, they know how to find aspects of physical activity that attract them and keep them healthy. And I think the other thing you alluded to then was about the passionate educator stroke coach. It's important that they sell the activity, whether it's a boxing class or whether it's a team sport. It's about their commitment to it, which is really interesting. Michelle, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think Rob has done a great job, talking a lot about lots of different aspects. And, I've seen working with a lot of schools in Victoria this year that the students want a voice. They want to be heard. They want teachers to ask them what it is that they want to do. And definitely there is a place, for competition. Some students still really want competition, and especially this season we've seen out in the community, I think all sports have had a full season, which is the first time in 2 years.
Yes.
So they are starting to come back now. And, when they first came back, they were so unfit. There was a lot of injuries, but we've seen, I know with my daughters who play football, AFL, we've seen as the season's progressed, they've really, found their fitness and their skills again and have really, enjoyed it. And also, I think the mental health aspect as well. We know that, teenagers have suffered, their mental health has suffered over the last 2 years with COVID, and physical activity has a really important part to play in repairing some of that damage, I guess we could say, that has been done. We know that the release of the endorphins make them feel better. We know through being with their friends and having fun and just playing, whether it's socially or competitively, that really helps with that connectedness and feeling that they're part of the community again, which a lot of them lost during COVID.
Totally. I think that it's an important commitment by any school to actually find, as you say, that connectedness provide opportunities for them to regain all of that teamwork and social aspects of their physical activity. Kirby, you've gone on to play professional sport, captaining the Queensland Fire, as you mentioned earlier, and taking Brisbane Heat to WBBL titles. How did your involvement in school sport influence your sporting career?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I really liked Rob's point about the interview with the 1500 meter runner. And when you look back, I think on your experiences having gone on to play elite sport, it actually is that simple. It needs to be enjoyable. You give so many hours to it. It becomes a part. You talk about what you give time to is what you value, and it becomes such an important part of your life. Yet I look back on some of the teams I was in at school and think upon those the most fondly as the most enjoyable teams I've been a part of, because at its essence, we all just really loved being there. So I think you could talk about lots of different things about school sport, and I'm such a firm believer in the opportunities that continue to be created in whatever kind of fashion those physical activities present. And I think my experience as an educator are absolutely reflected in what Michelle and Rob have said as well, that the agency and the voice of girls in schools, students in schools, is so critical, because we certainly as adults wouldn't want to be told what we had to do. So why on earth do we impose those same things on students? So to your question, I suppose, about that school sport experience, I would still come back to the idea of connectedness and belonging. I think there's lots of valuable skills that you learn, and I know that we'll talk about those in a little bit. I think from the perspective of what school sport did for me going on to do other things, ultimately it's where I found a love of being part of a team and working with the team and trying to be better. I think that idea of you belong to something, you get to compete alongside people, and that idea of continual progress that then sort of translated to academic study and how you are in your friendships and all of those things. So for me, it boils really down to that essence of, do I belong to something, and am I alongside people that really matter to me?
Good stuff. So the transferable skills taken from sport into your professional life, are they transferable? Is that a myth? Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, I think, and that's maybe where we do start to delineate the difference between what is Pilates and yoga and those sorts of activities versus what it is to be part of a team. And I think when I start to think about the skills that probably were transferable, it's certainly not a myth. I think largely people will speak about those as the idea of leadership. And if you were to unpack what that actually means, I think there's a part in there from a leadership perspective that for me in education and also as an athlete, that idea of building a team. You understand working with different people. If you think about coming together with, depending on what sport you play, upwards of 10 different people from different families and different walks of life. And you have to find a way to make those people work together in a sporting team, and that has very much transferred for me as a leader in schools, and also obviously as a leader of a sporting team. I think the other thing that I would point to, people talk a lot about resilience or adversity, and I think there's an absolute harsh reality in, for every race that is run, for every 1500 meter gold medal that's won, or the hockey roos, missing out and winning a silver, or any of those sorts of things. Like I think there's an absolute reality in being able to pick yourself up off the floor, and going hand in hand with that is feedback. If I think about things that are transferable, it's almost that capacity to have a coach provide feedback to you that don't necessarily want to hear, whether the result provides the feedback for you or whether a person provides that feedback for you. That idea of being absolutely honest with yourself. And if you want to be better, you need to recognize those things, and understanding that it won't always work out. And I mean, we've all lived an experience in personal, professional, or sporting lives where things haven't gone the way that you want it to. And it's that capacity to almost rationalize in a less emotional way, make sense of what you can do differently, and then try and be better the next time in whatever part of your world that applies to. The other thing I would probably point to is risk-taking. It's not something that comes naturally to me, yet sport helped me build that capacity, what it is to take risk and have that not feel like an awful thing to do, or understand that you do take a risk and sometimes it doesn't come off. So long as you know why you took the risk in the first place, that's okay. And I think that then sort of connected for me with almost that intuitive decision making that on a sporting field, as a cricket captain, I had to do a lot. And often we can think about things to the nth degree, and that's something I'm definitely susceptible to in an education context, where I'll unpack every conceivable angle. And one of the great things about being a captain of a cricket team is sometimes you get 10 seconds to make a decision about something. People happen to be watching you on television. Some of those people you'll then walk into work with on Monday and they'll have an opinion about the choices that you made. So the reality of being able to go, no, do you know what? I'm trusting my gut. I'm making that decision. It feels a bit like a risk, but I think it's an okay risk and it will work or it won't work. So yeah, I suppose there's some of the things that for me really stand out from a transferable perspective.
Yeah, I think that what you're saying there, certainly sport gives you a framework, doesn't it, on which to draw, whether it's teamwork, resilience, risk-taking, decision-making. It's a fascinating mix. Thank you. Michelle, with your experience with the Hot Shots program in tennis and also the current Active Schools, ACHPA Active Schools program that you've been involved with, you're looking to help schools set up frameworks to ensure that our youth are physically active and involved. What do you see as some of the key strategies for increasing participation that you've experienced or you've implemented?
Yeah, I think we've already touched on quite a lot of them through the chat, but a great example is when I was at tennis. You know, we all know that there's a drop off in participation around that sort of 15, 16, 17 year age group. So at tennis, we looked at designing a new program that tried to encourage the tennis players or even non-tennis players to keep playing. And so we developed a program called Tennis for Teens, and we did a lot of research and we spoke to a lot of youth about what it is they wanted. And, you know, the themes that came through and ones that we've already discussed was, you know, they don't want to play competition. They don't want to have coaching. They just want to play with their friends, and they want a safe place to do that. They also wanted it to be drop in, drop out. So Rob talked about, you know, the commitments of work and school and friendships, all those pressures that meant that they couldn't commit to something week in, week out. So having that ability to turn up when the time allowed them to do that. And they just didn't want that pressure to perform. So we developed Tennis for Teens, and basically it was carving out a time at the tennis courts where there was someone there to just be there, supervised, didn't actually have to run anything, but the teens could just come and play tennis the way they wanted to. And we had some fantastic numbers, some fantastic feedback, and it's now become a part of the offerings at Tennis Victoria, and lots of clubs around Victoria have taken it up. And, you know, when we talked about Hot Shots, so that was sort of grade 5 and grade 6, it was interesting. Once it started to build momentum, then that momentum grew and grew and grew, and it became a bit of a culture at school. So, you know, getting the right person to take it was really important. You know, especially when we're talking about girls' sports, you know, you need to have someone, whether it's male or female, that actually knows how to talk to the girls and can understand the pressures that they've got and the issues that they're facing, and just how to get onto their level and really encourage them, because that's all the girls want. They want encouragement and they want some positive feedback as well. So we saw with the Hot Shots that once we got the right people in place, that the Hot Shot program really grew, and it was word of mouth as well. So once the word got out that this program was great, it was modified tennis, so any student could play. And, you know, it'd be great when you'd go out and run a competition, and over the day you'd see the skills level improve, and all students could feel success. And I think that's something also that's really important. If girls are playing sport and they never experience success, and success doesn't have to be winning week in, week out, the success might be, you know, they made an awesome pass, or they you know, contributed to a goal, or whatever it might be. So once the students knew that they were going to experience success and improve fairly quickly, then they wanted to play. So I think there are a few of the key elements, that make students and girls in particular want to play and to help grow programs. And it does take time. Change takes time. So if you're introducing something new at your school and the first week it doesn't work and the second week it doesn't work, but the third week you might see some improvements, and then, the ball starts to roll and you get more and more girls engaged. So, yeah.
Rob, do those strategies resonate with you and Lauriston?
Yeah, I think you can probably see me nodding, agreeing with what Michelle's saying. Look, and it comes back to, I just think sometimes we underestimate the importance of staff and having an engaging staff member involved in a sport or an activity. We can employ someone who is an incredibly skilled coach, a really high level accredited coach, and they may not have the greatest communication skills. Whereas on the flip side, we can employ someone who's not quite as accredited or well, I guess has all the paperwork, but they can be super duper engaging. They can be friendly. They can make you want to be there and want to return to the activity. And I think it's really important that we find them someone that fits both of those categories. The staff that you bring in is so important for girls to return to sport and return to an activity. I mean, we brought in a boxercise class not long ago. And exactly what Michelle said, we struggled to gain numbers. We had 1, 2, 3 girls turning up. It was an optional activity for girls. We ran it for 3 weeks, reassessed, what are we going to do? We're going to continue. We decided to continue, added plenty of exciting music in. It's before school. And suddenly we've got 20 to 30 girls turning up. The staff members engaging, but the importance of music also helps. It makes it fun and makes it want girls to attend. So just a couple of minor little things that we've tweaked or added in. Although having engaging staff is a pretty important one, they make a big difference to sport programs.
So, and I'm assuming that was one of the COVID responses, was it? And subsequently, I know you spoke briefly about the influence of COVID and those programs, but if you could actually specify the sorts of programs you introduced with the COVID issue.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess with COVID, when COVID hit us, we really quickly got our staff together and said, well, what activities are we currently offering? What can we continue offering? And what do we need to cease for now? Obviously, when we looked at things like soccer trainings and those sort of things, we could offer a little bit of one-on-one coaching where they might get online and speak to the coach, and the coach might have given them some activities and go away and do it, or as a team. Or we could turn around and say, look, you know what? We're going to change our focus completely. We're going to look at more of the recreational activities that people can do at home by themselves. We've got heads of swimming and heads of arts. Swimming was one, obviously, that we couldn't run, but we could do dry land, or we could do strength and conditioning stuff at home. I think everyone sitting here will probably think, yep, we've done circuits to death, and we did plenty of those throughout the time. But it was about making them as relevant as you can. But more importantly, for us, we tapped into our student leaders. We have a lot of sport captains within the school, and we put it on them and said, hey, we're going to run a swimming session today, and we would like you to encourage girls to attend, and we want you to run it. We'll be there to help you where you need it, but run a circuit based on swimming. And other activities, yoga and Pilates. And I think the other thing we did is we created a sport speaker series. So we got in some ex-students, some AFL players, some cricket players, and they came and sat. We did it as a breakfast series, so girls could sit there and eat their breakfast before they had to go to class online and listen to an AFLW player or an elite rower and talk about their experience, have an opportunity to meet them online, and just other ways to keep them involved in sport. And it didn't have to be physical. It was other ways of doing it through listening and getting people's experience, which we found to be really, really important and really, really valuable for the girls.
Well, the idea of using student leaders is outstanding, I think, and getting, what a wonderful way to have breakfast. Kirby, do you want to add anything from your school's point of view in relation to the COVID experience?
Maybe not specifically to the COVID experience. I definitely love to pick up on a couple of things that I just heard from both Michelle and Rob. I think the power, maybe a consolidation of what Rob just talked about. I think the power of female role models is critical, but alumni at your school even more so. I think I've experienced both as a as a person attending a school where that was done really well, and at a school where I'm trying to evolve what that looks like. I think the power that's built in, it doesn't need to be an elite athlete necessarily. It can be someone who's connected to the school. That allows you to build a really special culture in particular activities. It can be organised sport, it can be recreational sport, but the idea of having female role models, yeah, for sure, sometimes they are elite performers, sometimes they were the captain of that sport, for example, in the previous year, and now they've come back to contribute to the school and to the next group of students moving through. So I think that is quite powerful in building culture and what that looks like. And I also really love the idea of how you promote student voice. It's been a theme of the day by accident. I think that idea of student agency, student voice, and utilizing your leaders, I think that's something that we don't necessarily do enough. That is really important to me in my context is, have we asked the students? What perspective have we not got because we actually haven't engaged? And not just the leaders, but almost the opposite, not just talking to the kids that you know will put themselves out there and come up with fantastic ideas. What's the rogue trader that you haven't talked to in your classroom recently that might actually have something really great to contribute, because their perspective is the one that actually helps you create a really well-rounded program.
Agreed, absolutely. I might just ask a general question to all three of you and then pounce on you accordingly. And I'm just wondering whether or not you feel that the current surge of women's professional sport, and certainly the media coverage of said sport, can make an impact on girls' sport. Michelle, do you want to start us?
Yeah, absolutely, Pauline. You know, we just have to look at AFLW, and, you know, we've seen how popular footy is now becoming for girls. The growth in sport, in women's sport, from especially sports that are getting airtime, is absolutely massive. And, you know, we've got the Women's World Soccer Cup coming up as well. So, you know, it'll be really interesting to see whether that correlates to more girls playing soccer as well. And Pauline, I'm going to use your comment. So you can't, you know, you can't be what you can't see. So the more that we get to see females being positive role models in the sporting field, you know, the more it's going to encourage our students to be active, and probably also just not on the field, as volunteers as well. When we think about, you know, who you've got in as your coaches, are you using female coaches? Are your sports administrators females? All those things contribute to girls being able to be involved in sport post school, either as athletes or administrators.
Yeah, strongly agree with that comment, Michelle. Rob, would you like to comment on that idea of professional women's sport?
Yeah, definitely. I think you're spot on. I mean, you know, we talk about it when you look at the Australian Open early in January, February, and how many people then go out and start playing tennis over the weekends or during the week, just because that's televised, it's on TV. You know, a few years ago, where AFLW really could have got pushed into the media. You know, there were a lot of girls playing AFL prior to that, but just because it's been forced into the media and they've really taken it and run with it, then it's been highlighted more, I guess, you know, on a bigger scale. Therefore, it's taken off, and you know, the increase in AFL through our sporting association, the Girls Sport Victoria, has been huge. You know, since 2019, their increase in AFL teams has been, you know, tripled. So that media impact is so important. You know, and we look at what the role that the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games plays is, you know, we can't underestimate the importance of the media through girls sport.
And Kirby, do you want to finish that comment? Have you got any thoughts there?
Many. I'm also conscious of our time, so
yes,
I'll choose one. Yeah, I think I would reiterate exactly what's been said already. As the Queenslander on the panel, I will choose a different example and talk about cricket. I think that I would argue that maybe the WBBL was the instigator of a lot of that kind of television representation, not because I come from a place that's biased, simply because that represented a really wonderful kind of landmark move for the sport of cricket in the country. And I think one of the most wonderful things about all of that I guess, presence and impact that the media has is that now both boys and girls are coming to watch men's and women's professional sport, and also that both boys and girls will articulate male and female players that they aspire to be like. And I think that's a pretty powerful thing and speaks to the impact that's having.
Totally, and we are half the population. I think we probably need to leave some time for questions that have arrived. I can't say how much I appreciate your time, Michelle, Rob, Kirby. It's been a fascinating conversation and one I'd like to continue offline. So with that, I will hand back to Teva Smith, our Director of Communication, and let Teva take us through some questions. Thank you, Teva.
Thank you all. It has been fascinating for me to sit here and listen. And like Pauline, I think this conversation could go on and on in so many really positive directions. I have a couple of questions from our audience to pose to you. The first one is from Colleen Hokianga. I'm so sorry, Colleen, if I pronounced your surname correctly, from Otago Girls High School in Dunedin. And she asks, how do you combat the cell phone debate? And because this can become a real barrier to sport.
Oh, what a wonderful question and a very relevant one. Rob, you're in the middle of it. I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a solution. Look, we're a school that don't allow girls to have their cell phones during the school day. They certainly do take them to sport and their sporting events after school. I think that's a really important thing as well for them, security wise. And when they come back to school, are able to contact their parents to say, hey, the bus is running late, or we're going to be back at school this time. And we can give them an estimate, of course, but traffic sometimes stops that. And I think, there's not a great solution. We in using sport and cell phones together, I think there's the opportunity to bring apps involved and using them during training sessions where possible, getting them to video. And I guess this is a PE thing as well, looking them to video certain skill aspects of sport and trying to encourage them in that focus. It's a really challenging thing, and I don't think it's going to get any easier as we move forward. I think our lives are full with the technology, and you've heard me speak about Clipboard already today, which is marvelous. But I think we've just got to adapt and try and use it as best we can to our advantage.
Michelle,
thank you, Rob. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Teva, I'm taking over.
No, Michelle, Kirby, did either of you want to add something to that?
Probably the only thing that I've seen has worked quite well is if it becomes an issue where the girls are on the phone at training or, during match time, they've been taken off a half time and they're on the phones, they actually just collect the phones for that session, just so it takes away that temptation. But, I agree with Rob, trying to integrate them into your program is the way to go.
Yeah, I think, Teva, the only thing that I would briefly add to that, I've been in a school where we didn't have them at all, theoretically, and then I've been in a school where they're out and about all the time. And I think I would still, my premise as a phys ed teacher or any teacher or leader for that matter who has to then enforce the fact that they've used them incorrectly, is the fact that if they are engaged in the activity in a meaningful way, the phone becomes redundant. So it's almost, how do we make the experience so engaging, whether that is with or without a phone, where they choose to take time away from that device.
Fantastic point. And then our next question is from Fiona Johnson, who is principal of St Hilda's Anglican Girls' School in WA. And she asks, can you share any ideas on how to contemporize traditional inter-school sport?
Gosh, that's actually a dissertation, isn't it? Do you feel you'd like to answer that, Rob? Or
yeah,
that's the hospital pass, Rob.
It's a really challenging one. I mean, we do inter-school sport where girls will go out and play a particular school on one night. Whereas our junior school will go out and play a carnival, where they'll go out on an afternoon and play 3 or 4 schools. And I think, I'm not sure we're necessarily contemporizing it, or whether we're just turning around and giving our girls more opportunity to have a bit of variety in their sport by playing different schools to then make it more fun in that element. Can we contemporize traditional inter-school sport by not making it as competitive? Can we offer competitive streams and recreational streams where they still compete, but there's no score? Or can we look to change the rules slightly to make it more enjoyable, more fun? I think it depends on the year group and the age groups. I mean, I know that a lot of junior sport in Victoria is you don't score. I mean, the kids score, but there's no specific ladders, there's no finals, and there's no official outcome to make it fun. And I think that's what we need to look at. But I'm not sure I've answered your question as perfectly as I would have liked, but it's a challenge. It's a great challenge.
Yeah, I think there's a place for traditional sport. I don't think that's dead. I think there's definitely a place, but for, you know, for different options, modifications to sports. So say you're playing, let's go soccer, usually 11 on a field per side. But if girls aren't getting touches, why can't we make it smaller side soccer? So it then becomes, you know, 8-a-side or on a smaller field, so they're having more opportunities to have a touch and getting success, and therefore they're going to enjoy it a lot more. And then things like, you know, I talked about the colour run, you know, for your cross country, looking at your athletics, how can you incorporate some fun into the athletics as well? So maybe, you know, you have your javelin, but alongside that you've got your vortex throw. You know, you have teachers versus student races, those sorts of things that, you know, bring in that social side, that fun side as well.
I think also a lot of the sports organisations are very clever at doing modified rules, and subsequently, I think, reference, you know, referring to those organisations and saying, you know, how are you making this more relevant for schools to go to those associations and seek their information as well and their assistance. And that engages that group, that particular sporting organisation with the school. And you might find that can lead to interesting views and slightly different competitions, modified rules and the like.
I think just adding to that, I think the world we live in now, we want quick fixes for everything. We want things done quickly so we can go on and do something else. I mean, it comes from girls signing up for sports and not turning up because they get a better offer, or their friends not doing it. You know, there would be very few sports in the world now that don't have a shortened version. You know, AFL has AFL 9s, cricket has T20, which come from tests and one days. Netball has, I think it's called Fast Fives. There's a whole range of sports now that we've condensed to allow us to do more of something. And I think changing the rules to allow us to do more, not necessarily a great option, but it is an option for us to then take those sports on and look to play them.
Yeah, and I think just to finish that, Teva, I think the almost summary point back to the original question, I think, is what are the opportunities in contemporizing a version of interschool sport? So there's still that recognition of what the pathway is for athletes that are interested in pursuing that, because they are genuinely wanting to pursue that pathway from an elite level, as to our media conversation before. And equally, how do you still compete against other schools in an interschool competition where you leverage some of those modified rules so there is more inclusion, yet it still feels like you're part of a team going and representing your school and the culture that builds as well?
I have one last question. I'm very conscious of time. So for our attendees, if you do need to rush off, please do. But I just have one last question, which is really a Pandora's box question, which we may not be able to answer in the next 3 minutes. And the question is, any suggestions for including transgender and non-binary students in sport?
No.
That's a massive one that we probably can't answer in 2 minutes. And I do have to say, I'm very conscious, you know, when we've spoken today, we have talked about boys and girls, and we haven't included, you know, that language for transgender and that sort of thing. So that is something, you know, I don't think we can answer that at the moment. That might be for another day, that one.
That can be for our next webinar. Maybe we can get everyone together and get the latest expertise on that. I think it's certainly a hot topic and something that I'm sure schools are really thinking about at the moment. And
definitely something that you can do. I've seen it happen, you know, through School Sport Victoria, that you know, sports can be very inclusive. You just got to have the right processes in place and the education piece around it as well. But definitely can be done.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. What a conversation. It's been fantastic. Thank you to all of our attendees today. If there's anything you want to ask any of the panelists, please just drop me an email and I will connect you with one of the panelists. Just to say that our next webinar is next week on the 17th of August. It's the 4th webinar of our mental health and wellbeing series. An Associate Dean of Wellbeing at Brisbane Girls Grammar School, Dr. Jodie Forbes, and body image, mental health and wellbeing expert, Dr. Zali Yeager, are presenting research into body image in adolescent girls. This is a free webinar for members, so I really encourage you to come. It's the event's on our website, so please just hop on there. Finally, thank you again to all our panelists. What a great discussion. And that's all from me. And I will be sending you a feedback email if you could just keep an eye out for that. All right, have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.